It's been a while since we spoke about the lawsuit on Palworld and Nintendo. However, these things tend to drag on, so the news on it can slow down. Hello, what's up, and welcome everyone. My name is Miss Quinn, and Nintendo seems to be getting very desperate. Now, we are all aware that Nintendo is just like Disney in the way that they love lawsuits. For those of you who don't remember, Palworld initially released in January 19 of last year, and since then Nintendo has had them in their crosshairs. Pocket Pair is also a Japanese company, however, let's not forget that their biggest profits come from here, the US. But because of the so-called similarities, whenever it comes, to catching pals and more, on September of last year as well, although I bet you're wondering, well, Quinn, at least they already had those patents. Well, no, they didn't. They didn't file for those patents until months after the release of Palworld. Which begs the question, did they file those patents just so they can go after Palworld? In my opinion, they did. Like I said, my opinion. Nintendo, like I said, my opinion. The first time I spoke about this lawsuit was back in September 22nd. Pokemon is catching Palworld in a lawsuit. This is where I first talk about the patent and explain it's not at all for copyright, which a lot of people would think, oh, they're going to sue them for copyright. But no, it ended up being for a completely different thing. It was after I uploaded the video that Palworld changed one of the 28 patents that they were accused of infringing. Patent number 7545191, which was about monster catching mechanics, which was said to be their quote-unquote killer patent. And again, this wasn't submitted until July 2024. Again, months after Palworld had already been released. So don't get me wrong, it is a great idea that they changed the way they capture the pals, even though a lot of people were upset that they had even changed it. But again, you're dealing with Nintendo. Unfortunately, it had to be changed, even though a lot of other games also had this mechanic, in my opinion. However, there is another patent that they had to be worried about, and this is the patent for riding mounts, like switching from a flying mount to a ground mount, and so on. But come on, you can't tell me that Pokemon is the only one with this implemented into their game. Some are saying just to change it since it isn't vital to the game, but in my opinion, that's not the point. Like I said, I'm pretty sure there's other games where you can ride different creatures. And after that thought, I told myself, let me look at Reddit, because in my opinion, Reddit knows a lot. Ark Survival Evolved was the first one to be mentioned, and they even have a whole page on rideable creatures. It shows that the game has 296 rideable creatures. You have land creatures, flying ones, and you can even tame a manta and pretend like it's Lapras to ride it as, guess what, a ground creature. Well, not more like a sea rideable creature, but you get my drift. Palworld is second on that list, but we all know about that. Small Lands, Far Cry Primal, and Horizon Zero Dawn. In my opinion, this just proves that we were right, that Nintendo just wants Pocket Pair to go away. They do not want to share the spotlight with another quote-unquote Pokemon look-alike. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, the US is one of their biggest customers, so Nintendo did their best to also fight Palworld here and filed 24 patents. Lucky for Palworld, 23 of those patents were denied, and one of them being the capture mechanic. In my opinion, this is a huge win for Palworld, and because they completely changed the way that they capture pals, this most certainly helps them. And let's just say, for example, they lose the lawsuit in Japan. Okay, then they cannot sell in Japan anymore, but they will stick to, the US, and they will stick to these other countries. It's not that big of a loss for them, even though it will hurt them financially in Japan. But avoiding a lawsuit altogether is why they are changing a lot of things that they are supposedly infringing on, which is also a fantastic idea. However, a few days ago, we got some news, and it seems like in a desperate attempt to win whatever they can, they have changed the wording of their patent. This isn't completely unheard of when it comes to lawsuits, but it's not all that common. Usually the company going into any form of a lawsuit will have all the documents ready with all the necessary adjustments. But in this one, no. Going so far as to include the word even. Even when, emphasize added, any boarding character other than the aerial boarding character capable of moving in the air is currently selected boarding character, and first operation input is given when the player character is in the air. The computer causes the aerial boarding character to appear in the virtual space and causes the player character to board the aerial board. You see, I was so confused by this wording. I'm going to leave it up here so you can read it. It's just too much. Also, there was a comment by Floor Miller in Gamefry. I've been following patent litigation for 15 years for the better part of that period as a consultant and have seen many claims that were amended, but I've never seen even when or even if in a patent claim. It's bizarre. Listen, I think I understand why Nintendo is doing this, and that is because they really don't like what Palworld is doing and they want to see them taken down. And what better way to do that than to change the wording of your patent, making the lawsuit drag on more, making, Pocket Pair have to spend more money in order to keep up with the lawsuit. They know what they're doing. In my opinion, they know that. They absolutely know what they're doing. They're like Disney in the way that they love throwing lawsuits around like it's a $2 deal at Denny's. And it is extremely easy for a company as massive as Nintendo to keep the lawsuit going. Because, yes, Pokemon is owned by the Pokemon Company, but Nintendo also owns it. I don't see what's wrong with being inspired by other game developers at all. I think it brings a healthy form of creativity, and we all know that, that doesn't matter to Nintendo. They don't want anything to compete with Pokemon because Pokemon is like their golden child. Now, I'm not going to lie, the wording in this lawsuit really confused me, more than likely because I'm not educated at all in that. Although when I showed it to my friends to see if maybe they understood the wording, my friend thought I wrote it and said that I used the word boarding too much, and that honestly threw me off too. Oh, and the fact that other games clearly have that too. And the fact that Palworld also had to remove this in May in order to also avoid the patent claim was ridiculous. Although, think about it. They changed the mechanic, and here goes Nintendo changing the wording of their patenting to hopefully cover the change by adding even when. I mean, you can't board your pals anymore when it comes to being in flight. No, the only thing that they really do is give you boosts or give you certain buffs when when in the air. They make you just glide faster and stuff like that. They just occupy the airspace, which unfortunately is what they cover right here, saying the computer causes the aerial boarding character to appear in the virtual space. I think they're going to try and get them on any single little thing that they can, because ultimately that is their goal. If you all remember, 3 years ago is when we got the trailer for Palworld, and the reason why I mentioned this is important, well, it is for me. I, of course, rewatched the trailer and dug deep into the comments left by people 3 years ago, and to say that time moves fast is an understatement. There was one person that said that, Nintendo is going to have a field day with this one, and there was some people, I can't find it, I tried to my best to look for it, but I do remember there was some people even kind of rooting for the fact that Nintendo was going to sue them. I don't know what is wrong with these, Nintendo D-writers. It's not fun to be sued. It is not, especially when all you want to do is create a game that you're passionate about. But I just found all these other comments, and one of them was just like, oh, Japanese culture, Pokemon, American culture. In other Nintendo news, IGN recently tweeted that the Nintendo Switch 2 is the fastest selling gaming hardware in US history. But it's kind of obvious that it will be the fastest selling. How can they not be the fastest selling console when they brick people's Switches so they have to buy a new one after selling their old one? Let's be honest here. How many people do you think had to rebuy a Switch because of that? Then, of course, because their games are going to be bought a lot, since according to this commenter from my last Nintendo video, they're also banning people after buying used games. You see, every game has a key identifier, if an ID, if you will. And if the previous owner wanted to dump the game and keep it as a backup, that can be very bad, because if you want to be online at the same time, if you so happen to be online at the same time, Nintendo can ban both people. So unfortunately, this makes buying used games a toss-up. The only way to pass this particular ban is to only buy new games, which unfortunately inflates also their games, like their sales. Because the only way to do that, the only way that you guys are having to get all these numbers and get all these sales is because you're literally punishing people for buying used games. Games that, mind you, are over 70, 80. And now Nintendo has made it completely clear that they can take away at any moment. Because remember, even the physical games are not completely yours. You're only buying the license to play it. And you have to download the actual games using online. So either way, you're screwed. Either way, Nintendo is, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, spitting in our faces. Don't get me wrong, I love my Switch. I do love Nintendo. Most of my childhood has been Nintendo and PlayStation. I have played a lot of the Pokemon games already. I'm a huge Pokemon person. But I don't know, this is just leaving a sour taste in my mouth. Now I bet you're wondering if I would buy the Switch. No, I don't want to buy the new Switch when, one, there's only 2 games for it, and that's not enough for me. 2, they are banning people for any little thing, and that's really overwhelming, actually. That makes me kind of scared that I can do any little error and then I'm going to get unjustly banned. 3, not liking what they are doing lately, especially with the whole Palworld, their lawsuit and everything. And lastly, I haven't been using my current Switch lately, so why would I buy something else that I'm more than likely not going to use? Seems like a waste of money to me. The only thing that I have been using lately is my PlayStation Portal, because I don't want to be sat on my computer all day just so I can play something, which I've been very, very leaning into Dave the Diver. It is a really good game. I honestly do hope that Palworld wins this lawsuit, and I really don't want Nintendo to win, even by default, because Palworld cannot keep up with going to every single, court hearing, because they are running out of money, so to speak. No, because that's honestly, that's dumb, because you're going here and you're changing even when boarding any character other than aerial boarding character capable of moving in air is currently selected. Like, this is just honestly very, very sketchy wording. This makes absolutely no sense. Even Florin was able to be like, hey, it's really bizarre to see even when or even if, in a patent claim, because the thing with patent claims, you want to be as specific as possible about what they're infringing on. And just making it super vague for everything is gonna, like I said, make it drag on more, because they're just like, oh, you're just gonna have to explain what they're actually infringing on, considering that they recently changed this, and Palworld has had that change since May. I think they're trying to still push for, the PAL creatures being used as, to basically to fly and everything, when it's like, dude, they're not being used as that anymore. It's been a long time since they weren't used as that. So by you changing the wording to even if and doing all this hullabaloo it's just, I don't know. It just makes it seem so desperate on your part. It makes it seem like you're trying to catch them so much on any single little thing. I don't think you care about what they're infringing on. I think you just care about taking them down, having them no longer be able to sell any more copies of Palworld. I don't know why you're doing that. And a lot of people are going like, oh, why are they bothering with like a sinking game with that doesn't even mean anything? And I say a lot of people, but in reality, it's only like one that I've seen so far. And it's just like, to that one person I've seen, them being a quote unquote dying game doesn't matter. What matters is that they're going after these developers just on the basis that they're quote unquote similar when they're really not. It's ridiculous. How about this, Pokemon? How about you make an actual game again that we love to play, so you won't get your quote unquote money taken from us, and maybe we'll give you some more money and maybe stop pulling all these stupid things. And they're also making, and Palworld is also making a lot more money, in my opinion, because they are not restricted to one console. They are not restricted to one company. They went on PlayStation. They're on PC. I don't know if they're on Xbox. I'm pretty sure that they are. I'll have to double check on that. But they're on multiple different platforms, and the fact that Pokemon can only be on one console, not everybody's on that console, and it just restricts it even more. But again, Palworld, in my opinion, is more likable. I'm able to cook with my pals. I am able to have them work for me until they're depressed, and then I can make them into food. There's just a lot of things to love. I'm kidding about that last part. Just kidding. Was that a joke, or was what I said originally a joke? You will never know. Anyway, I like Palworld. I did when I played it, and sometimes I still continue to play it. I just go back and I browse through everything, and I just like pew pew pew. But I don't know. I just think what they're doing is really horrible. I don't like it whatsoever. But that's just my humble opinion, Nintendo. My humble opinion, Nintendo, is that hopefully you lose, because it's like, I just hate the bullying that these companies do with lawsuits to these other companies that cannot afford to keep extending their money for these lawsuits. No, I don't like that. Well, guys, that's it for me. If you made it this far into the end of the video, I do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Russell Mania. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thank you, WrestleMania, for commenting on my last video on Nintendo to let me know about their other banning, which is why I wanted to include it in the video. Though I did see an article that someone that got banned for their ownership of a used game was, unbanned. But that can't be said for every case. So guys, be careful when purchasing even used games. You can never know. This is why I said, like, well, do I really want to spend not only like close to $500 on a handheld device, but also like $80 on Nintendo, like, how do you call it, Mario Kart World or Donkey Kong? I don't know. For me, it's not worth it. But guys, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.